Hello everybody, my name's Mitch and today we are going to do Usman versus Masvidal 2, the full card fight predictions. If you're new here, we'll go ahead and go through all the picks first and then we'll talk about the reasons why. Now I've got my Max Holloway sweatshirt on and I'm feeling good. Let's go ahead and get started. We have Jamie Simmons, Ariane Carnelossi, Keeling Ori, Zhu Rong, Dana Batgirl, Brendan Allen, Dwight Grant, Randy Brown, Anthony Smith, Chris Weidman, Valentina Shevchenko, Rose Namajunas, and Kamaru Usman. Those are my picks for the card. Let's get into the reasons why. Alright, so first we have Jamie Simmons versus Johnny Munoz. Now these fighters at first glance look pretty similar. They both look like confident wrestlers. Tough loss to Giga Chookagian there, but that's not a bad loss at all. Both fighters seem like confident wrestlers, like they kind of like to go in and go for pressure, push them up against the wall, wrestle them, get a takedown. Although I do like Jamie Simmons' hands a little better in here, and now that I look at their history, experience as well, I will consider Giga experience there, so I'm going to go with Jamie Simmons. Alright, next we have Na Liang versus Ariane Carnelossi. Now, to get started real quick, I have UFC China Academy prospect and a few prospects. So anyway, my understanding is that Na Liang is a prospect for UFC's China Academy, whatever that does mean. I don't know too much, so if anyone has more information on that, that's helpful. Here we have her history. I didn't know too much about any of this organization or fighters, but from what I did see, it seemed like she liked to engage on the ground. She got into weird grappling scrambles and exchanges, some nice submissions and ground and pound wins. On the other side, we have Ariane Carnelossi. I'm going to side with what I believe is stand-up power and also experience. We see a tough loss to Angela Hill. Other than that, coming off of some good wins as well. Also, I don't know too much about these organizations, but I am going to go with Ariane Carnelossi. Next, we have Keeling Aori versus Jeffrey Molina. Before we get into their past fights, allow me to introduce you into Keeling here. We have Jorge Masvidal, we have Corey Sandhagen, and we kind of have Keeling Aori, or Aori Keeling. Crazy knee to the face. We go into his history. These fighters aren't too recognized, but when I went into his fights, you see a lot of crazy striking exchanges. He's willing to engage, he trusts his hands, and they do seem heavy for the most part. On the other hand, we have Jeff Molina. I feel like Jeff Molina is a little more patient, has a little more technical ability, and will wait, maybe calf kick, be patient, pick his shots, and I think Keeling Aori is gonna go in and try to brawl, land some hits. He seemed really precise with his hits. I think he will be able to connect and win the stand-up battle. I'm going with Aori Keeling in this one. Next we have Kazula Vargas versus Zhu Rong, or Rong Zhu. On Rodrigo Vargas' side, the first thing I notice is he's 35 years old with a 5'8" height and shorter reach than the other man as well. He's coming off of some losses as he's entered the UFC. Just doesn't look great in general. Feels like momentum's not going in the right direction, and perhaps fighting is not looking too much brighter for his future. On the other end, we have Zhu Rong coming off of a bunch of win streaks, a bunch of wins rather, on a win streak, making his UFC debut here. From what I saw, Rodrigo Vargas likes to kind of take his time, slowly approach, come in, maybe pressure against the cage, but really for the most part it seems like he tries to come in and really take your head off. On the other end, we see Zhu Rong. He's kind of a little more patient, waits for you to come in, also trying to take your head off. I really feel like this seems like one where I could see Rodrigo Vargas getting caught on the way in here. Both fighters look like they have heavy hands, however. I'm going to go with the age, the momentum. 21 is rather young. A lot of times we see those super young fighters struggle, but I'm going to go with Zhu Rong with this one. Next we have Dana Betgrill versus Kevin Natividad. Man, sometimes The names are not easy for me, but on Dana Betgriel's side, we see that he's coming off of a comeback win, or a bounce back rather, after his loss in his UFC debut against Guido Canetti. This was a pretty good fight. He looked pretty vicious in the first round with stand-up, just kind of kept Guido lined up the whole time. Guido, and then ends him with the left hook eventually. He was hitting him pretty hard before that. On the other hand, we have Kevin Notvidad's side, kind of a similar story where he lost his UFC debut. In this fight, he didn't look too great against Miles Johns. You get to see a little bit of everything, him trying to pressure, him getting pressured, striking, and he seemed to look like he was struggling almost in all of the areas. I didn't really love what I see. I'm going to go with Dana Betgriel in this one. Next, we have Karl Roberson versus Brendan Allen. In the video with Marvin Vettori versus Kevin Holland that I went over, we did see that Karl Roberson is one of those guys that blows up pretty huge when he gets in there in the ring. He's got a loss to Marvin Vettori, who just beat Kevin Holland earlier today, and we have lost to Glover Teixeira as well. I don't know how big Brendan Allen gets when he's in the ring. He could blow up as well, but at any rate, I don't see these fighters being too great at getting the takedown or being overly eager to get the takedown. I think it's going to be a stand-up fight, and with that, I think Brendan Allen's going to be kind of quicker and just landing the better shots in there. I'm going to go with Brendan Allen. Next, we have Dwight Grant versus Stephan Ceculik. Now, the first thing we notice is the difference in the team around them. For Dwight Grant, we have American Kickboxing Academy, and for those who follow the UFC closely, we know that that's like Javier Mendez, Habib, Daniel Cormier is out of there. On the other end, we have Stephan Ceculik, and we have Family Fight Team. One thing that I thought was kind of interesting was the picture for Family Fight Team. I mean, this does not scream, we fight to me, but at any rate, we're going to go back to Dwight Grant here. I'm going to really side with, other than the team around them, with power. Dwight Grant seems like he's got a lot of power. He's got a tough loss here against Daniel Rodriguez, but we're not too worried about that. Another guy who won earlier today over his fight against Mike Perry. That was a good fight. And then on the other hand, we have Stephan Ceculik, and like his affiliation, you don't know too much about his history. We do see the loss to Ramazan Amiv, but other than that, the Serbian Battle Championship I'm not too familiar with. We're going to go with power. We're going to go with the team around them, Dwight Grant. Next, we have Alex Oliveira versus Randy Brown. Now, I do need to admit that I am a fan of Randy Brown in his fighting, but as we look at Alex Oliveira's side here, it doesn't look great. We see some tough losses and then a nice little win streak and then another tough loss. We go to Randy Brown's side. He has a very tough loss to Vicente Luque, although that first round, I feel like you could argue you give to Randy Brown. At any rate, he did really good things standing up. The big problem he had was the calf kicks. I'm not sure how much Alex Oliveira is going to implement that. This win against Warley Alves was a very good win. I feel like we've seen a lot of scenarios where Randy Brown has had to overcome and show tenacity and overcome and win the fight. He's the taller man. He's got the way longer reach. I think he's going to do some flashy things standing up and get the win here. Next, we have Anthony Smith versus Jimmy Crute. This is another one where I'll have to admit I am an Anthony Smith fan, although I am a fan of Jimmy Crute as well. On Anthony Smith's side, we see that his 3 losses are to a former champ and 2 guys that I believe are going to fight for the belt eventually. And then he outclasses Devin Clark here, showing that he's still at the top of the division, and you're going to need to be elite to hang with him. And I think that's what we're going to see here against Jimmy Crute. I think we're going to see... I wouldn't be surprised if we see some really good things from Jimmy Crute, but I think Anthony Smith is just going to show him that elite light heavyweight division class. But we will see. We see a round 1 finish and a round 1 finish. I mean, he's just getting all of these opponents out of here. Sometimes I don't think that's a good thing, because when you face someone who you can't get out of there, it's 3 rounds of hell. We'll see how it goes, but I'm going to go with the underdog, Anthony Smith here. He's a big underdog. Maybe I'm just being a fan, but I'm going to go with Lionheart. Next we have Uriah Hall versus Chris Weidman, two absolute legends of the sport, both at the age of 36. Although Uriah Hall almost seems a lot younger to me. I don't know why that is, but we have him coming off of some wins to Anderson Silva, Antonio Carlos Jr. Really, I'm not too worried about their history, but if we do look, they've both only lost to killers, unless you consider Luke Rockhold not a killer. And if you do, I don't blame you necessarily. On the other side, we see Paulo Costa, Derek Brunson, Robert Whittaker, Gerard Mousasi. I think they both have a loss to Gerard Mousasi. But I'm going with Chris Weidman, and I have a really weird take on this. I feel like if they were both fighting like for their lives, like literally for their lives, I feel like Uriah Hall would win. But at the end of the day, they're not. I feel like Uriah Hall really just isn't a killer, and because of that, I feel like he's going to let Chris Weidman go in there and try to wrestle, and I think Chris Weidman's going to be able to out-wrestle him for 2 out of 3 rounds. It's kind of weird, but that's how I see it going. Next we have Valentina Shevchenko versus Jessica Andrade, and I feel like there's not too much to say about this one. Valentina Shevchenko is one of the best fighters of all time, and we can go ahead and just, gasp at her history and the different ways of finishes and just the elite level of competition she's faced. On the other end, we have Jessica Andrade. We see her losing to both Weili and Rose, so why not move up and go for the 125 belt? I feel like that's just lack of competition at 125 perhaps, but anyway, we're going to go with Valentina Shevchenko. I have a hard time seeing a way that Jessica can win this fight other than picking Valentina up and slamming her down on her head, similar to Jessica Rose won, but that's just me. If anyone has any ideas on how Jessica can win this fight, I'm all ears. I'd love to talk about it, but I don't see it happening. Valentina Shevchenko and still. Next we have Weili Zhang versus Rose Namajunas. Now I did make a video on this where I picked Rose, and it was interesting to see the feedback and the comments. I'm not going to lie. You guys have me kind of doubting my pick a little bit, but I'm still going to go with Rose Namajunas. I really think she can win the stand-up here, and I think she can give Weili a lot more problems on the ground than people are giving her credit for. I do understand that Weili seems a lot more tough and a lot more powerful, perhaps a lot faster, maybe even more gritty and tough, but we'll see how this goes. We'll go ahead and look at their history here. Weili Zhang has, quite the crazy history. Just a nice win streak there. Rose Namajunas' side, we have a loss to Jessica, loss to Carolina. But anyway, we're going with Rose Namajunas. Next we have Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. Now, Kamaru Usman, I feel like, is still underrated, even though he's the champion of the world, even though he's dominating everyone in the division, even though he already has a win over Jorge Masvidal. I get it, his fight style is pretty boring. I'm pretty sure I've fallen asleep to maybe even the last fight. I'm honestly not looking forward to this fight too much. I am, in the sense that I do think there's a chance Jorge Masvidal can come and bring it and really knock him out, do a lot of damage. However, I don't see it happening anywhere past, say, like the second round. So if it goes any longer than that, I'm not too sure how much I feel like I'll need to watch. I will, of course, watch the fight, but I think Kamaru Usman, if he can get past the beginning, he's going to come off even stronger toward the end. And Kamaru Usman is just too good of a welterweight. He's the greatest active welterweight. He's the champion for a reason, and I think he's going to win this fight again. I could see it being the 5 rounds to 0. I understand Gilbert Burns was able to knock him down and all of that, and Jorge Masvidal can do the same. It'd be pretty cool to see, another flying knee. I would love Jorge Masvidal to win this fight, but I'm going with Kamaru Usman. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed, feel free to hit the thumbs up. It's very helpful if you hit that subscribe button as well. Feel free to leave a comment. I'm always interested in to see what you guys have to say. And if you really like talking about fights or chatting about fights, then feel free to follow me on any of the other platforms. We've had Twitter and Instagram, and I went ahead and made a Discord. I figured I could talk about fights even more with you guys through that. I'll leave a link in the description. At any rate, you guys all have a good week. I will see y'all Saturday. Peace.